Just another story. It's me, man-made life. They tell us how you get out in the sky. All right, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the THC Wednesdays, the Cannabis Wednesdays, and consider the THC Ministries of Arizona Church in session. My guests today are Ray Christl, and we've got a special guest, Ryan. Reverend XCannabis are my guests today, and we want to bring to your attention that this show is being done in honor of Roger Christie, who started the THC Ministries Church and is currently a political prisoner being held in Hawaii for making me a reverend. And people like Ryan here. Hello, Ryan. Welcome.
Oh, thank you for having me on. You know, I listened to your guys' show, the first one of the THC Ministry Hour, and I was absolutely impressed and grateful. And, you know, I'm just glad we've got people standing up for Roger Christie, because there's, you know, so many that are, you know, feeling the same way we are about him, that he was not only a patriot, but a man of God and a very peaceful, loving, kind man who shouldn't be in prison.
I did a time in prison back when I was about 20 some odd years old for having marijuana in a state where it was a life sentence, ladies and gentlemen, to have a little bit of pot with you. And there were people in prisons doing that. We've got one in every 31 Americans is in prison on parole or on probation right now for something, and 3/4 of them are in there for possessing a part of a plant that was our #1 cash crop that you could pay your taxes with in this country for 200 years. My other guest...
Brian, this is Pastor Ray. Brian, get into your ministry. You're so well spoken. Get right into your message for us, brother.
Please do. Please do. I've said my piece here.
Well, thank you, Clayton and Ray. I appreciate you guys. Thanks for having me on. And you know, I've been fighting this strong for the last 3 years. And before that, you know, I've served time, and I've been a non-violent offender, victimless crimes, possession of marijuana, and served 8 months in jail for simple possession, no other crime. It was a Class B misdemeanor in a no-tolerance state, which was Utah. And that motivated me back in 96 and 97 to leave home and to actually move to Washington before I was even an adult. And I moved there, and even though cannabis, or the prohibition of cannabis destroyed my life in Utah and put me on the streets, I was homeless for 3 years. In Seattle, cannabis saved my life. I started doing activism, and I went out and got signatures for, Proposition 615 here in Washington that we got on the ballot and passed. And, I got paid for that. I actually got paid to get cannabis legalized here in Washington in part. And so not only did it save me, in those ways, but I also was saved spiritually, because I was so mad, so angry and destroyed inside from just having so much persecution, and my family rejecting me. My family, who were Mormon, had nothing to do with me after my second arrest and put me out on the streets. And I was 15 years old, when I first started having problems with them. And by the time I was 17, I was full-blown homeless. And, I just was so angry, and I associated with angry people, and I've been in fights, and, just use that as my medicine, because it was so hard to find what I needed, which was cannabis.
Now let me tell you. Let me say. I've had people say to me, and some Christian groups have really gotten down on me because I recommend the legalization of cannabis, and I believe it's a sacrament. I believe it's more than just a plant. I think the Bible talks about it as a plant of renown. I think God said, "I gave you all the plants here. This one is the most useful in the country." And
Yeah.
as soon as I started talking about that,
Clay.
yes.
Ryan was really building up to it.
Go ahead.
So
Go ahead, Brian. Go ahead. I mean, I understand. Go ahead.
You know, I don't mind the commentary at all. I actually think a lot of this has been covered before. I feel like I'm just kind of, reiterating what's already been said.
Get back to your point there, Ryan. Get back to that. Go on.
Yeah,
Get back to your point.
Obviously, and most definitely one of those plants that God gave us. And, and like you're saying, mentioning the first page of the Bible.
How did it save you? How did it save you? How did it turn you into a minister? How did it save you?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, sure. I'll get into that. As far as how it saved me, I mean, the anger that I had built up, like I was saying, the medicine I was using was the wrong medicine. I was using anger. I was using frustration. And when I couldn't find cannabis, I would use other self-medicating drugs, harder drugs, because it was so hard to find in Utah. And it's a no-tolerance state, so people don't dare grow it. They'll end up like Clayton with a life sentence, or close to anyway, and lose their families, have asset forfeiture happen on their assets. And so people didn't grow, and people, depended on the Mexican cartels to bring in this, really horrible marijuana. And so I had little access to it and ended up with a lot of mental problems, a lot of anger issues, mostly. And I didn't have the relief I needed. I didn't have medicine that I could trust that wouldn't kill me. So I ended up leaving home and moving to Washington at age 17. And that's when we got, cannabis legalized. It was about 97 when that passed through Proposition 615. And I had worked on that, which I'm proud of. After that, I kind of went on with my own life. I found Jesus Christ at a street ministry in Seattle, New Horizons Ministries. Witnessed to me, loved me, gave me the love of Christ without judgment. Knew that I was using cannabis, knew that I probably was having premarital sex, didn't really care about my personal stuff. They cared about my heart and wanting to heal me. And that's when I got acquainted with Jesus Christ. And I gave up cannabis. I gave up alcohol. I gave up cigarettes. I just wanted to know Christ. I wanted nothing but Christ. And then just recently, I started working graveyard shifts. I do database admin stuff at night, building databases and repairing things for hospitals. And so I working these graveyards, and I found out that I have a condition called cluster headaches, which is from a constricted blood vessel in my head. And similar to how coma is treated with cannabis, my cluster headaches and my constriction in my head was also treated the same way. So I started using cannabis as a form of relief, not necessarily a sacrament, but I started finding relief in cannabis medicinally and spiritually, mentally. In so many ways, I started feeling that relief that I had when I was using it as a kid. And I started researching more about my faith and talking to pastors about it, getting a lot of feedback, negative feedback for sure. And, I've spoken at Southern Baptist conferences about suicide. My brother killed himself at age 16 on prescription medication. So I had a lot to do with the church. I spoke at a lot of conferences, and I helped at a street ministry and more of a coffee shop in Salt Lake City that was also a church and a ministry. And it was my whole life. I mean, Jesus Christ has been everything to me for almost 11 years. But I found more and more about my faith by getting this criticism and these debates, which I loved. What is it? Psalm 27:5 says, "Open rebuke is better than love carefully concealed." I love people to rebuke me. I love people to say, "You're doing something wrong. I challenge you. Look into that deeper." And I crave that. I always wanted that because I was lost. I was a lost soul, and I needed more. I needed more food, more food from God, more spiritual food. And so that caused me to look into this deeper, and that's when I found, The Emperor Wears No Clothes, and started reading Jack Harris' works and researching cannabis more and getting more, acquainted with the truth that was hidden from me my whole life, especially being Mormon. I had no access to true information about cannabis growing up at all, except for true friends. Say that again?
Absolutely correct. And you're doing a wonderful job of explaining your story here, and you're really you're just touching people so deeply here.
Okay, I want to explain just a moment. Let me put something in here. It is my show here, so I do reserve the right to comment here. And people have asked me, well, Clay, now and it's churches, it's a Christian identity that's down on me because I'm telling the truth about the cannabis. And I believe it is a sacrament. because we sat around in the 60s